Welcome to a video where we are gonna show you how a interview between an hiring manager who's hiring for a LangChain OpenAI full stack developer goes along with a candidate who has some experience. Let's dive into it and let's look at the job requirement. The job requirement is you need to have expertise in LangChain, OpenAI, and large scale data processing at production level, full stack developer with backend skills. What we're looking for is 5 to 7 years of experience, very strong communication skills, Python, Fast API, Django, Flask, OpenAI, LangChain skills, and you need to have React or transcript, which TypeScript, which is a bonus but not necessary. So if you have it, it's good. It's or else it's fine. So the two people that will be there in this call is one is an interviewer who's the hiring manager, which will be played by an AI, hiring manager at a tech company looking to fill a position requiring this expertise in LangChain, OpenAI, and large-scale data processing, and the candidate, which I will be using my voice, where I am a seasoned full-stack developer with 10 years of experience. So let's jump into it.
Good morning, Vivian. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you. I'm excited to be here and look forward to discuss this opportunity.
Great to hear that. I've gone through your resume, and I'm impressed by your experience. I'd like to dive deeper into your technical expertise and your experience with the specific technologies we are looking for. But before we get into that, could you give me a brief overview of your career so far?
Certainly. I've been working as a full stack developer for the past 10 years. My experience spans across various domains, but I've focused primarily on backend development using Python and frameworks like Django and Flask. Recently, I've been working extensively with FastAPI, LangChain, and OpenAI, specifically on projects that involve large scale data processing and deployment in production environment. Additionally, I have hands on experience with React and TypeScript for front end development, although back end development remains my strong suite.
That sounds like a solid background. Let's start with your technical expertise, particularly with LangChain and OpenAI. Can you describe a recent project where you utilized LangChain? What were the primary challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Sure. In my past project, we used LangChain to create a chatbot capable of understanding and responding to natural language queries by interfacing with various APIs. The main challenge was optimizing the model's response time while maintaining accuracy. We overcame this by implementing a hybrid approach combining rule based systems with the generative capabilities of LangChain to speed up responses for common queries.
What are some key considerations when deploying a LangChain based solution at scale?
When deploying LangChain at scale, some key considerations include ensuring low latency responses, managing API rate limits, and optimizing the model for the specific use case. We also need to consider the cost implications of using large language models, so it's important to fine tune the models to balance cost and performance.
How do you integrate OpenAI's models into a FastAPI or Django application?
Integrating OpenAI's models into a fast API or Django application typically involves creating API endpoints that interact with OpenAI's API. In Fast API, I've used the async capabilities to handle requests efficiently. For Django, I often set up background tasks to manage the asynchronous nature of API calls. Error handling, retries, and caching are also critical to ensure robustness.
How do you handle versioning and updates for models in production?
Versioning and updating models in production require careful planning. I usually containerize the models using Docker, ensuring that each version is independently deployable. We also implement CI/CD pipelines to automate testing and deployment with rollback mechanisms in place in case of issues.
What strategies do you use for scaling large scale data processing in Python?
For large scale data processing, I typically use parallel processing with libraries like Dash or PySpark, depending on the data volume. I also leverage message queries like RabbitMQ or Kafka to distribute tasks across multiple workers, ensuring efficient processing.
Can you walk me through how you would optimize a Python application for performance?
Optimization starts with profiling the application to identify bottlenecks. I use tools like cProfile or Line Profiler for this. Based on the findings, I might refactor code for better algorithm efficiency, leverage caching, use asynchronous processing, or move CPU intensive tasks to Python for performance gains.
How do you ensure that the API endpoints you create in FastAPI or Django are secure?
Security is paramount. I implement authentication and authorization mechanisms using OAuth 2 or JWT. I also validate all incoming data rigorously, protect against common vulnerabilities like SQL injection and XSS, and ensure that sensitive data is encrypted both in transit and at rest.
How do you manage dependencies and environment consistency across development, testing, and production?
I manage dependencies using pip and virtual environments or with Docker for containerized environments. For consistency, I use tools like pip environment or Poetry and maintain separate environments for development, testing, and production. CI/CD pipelines help enforce these environments consistently across different stages.
Could you describe your experience with React and TypeScript? How comfortable are you with front end development?
While my primary focus has been on backend development, I have worked on several projects using React and TypeScript. I am comfortable with component based architecture, state management, and integrating APIs with front end applications. Although it's not my core strength, I can effectively contribute to full stack development when required.
Can you explain how you'd implement a feature toggle in a Django application?
Feature toggles can be implemented using combination of database driven flags and middleware. I usually create a model to store feature states and a middleware that checks the flag before executing certain code paths. This allows us to enable or disable features without deploying new code.
How do you approach testing in your development workflow?
Testing is integral to my workflow. I write unit tests for individual functions, integration tests for API endpoints, and use tools like PyTest to automate the testing process. For web applications, I also include end to end tests using Selenium or Cypress and ensure coverage with tools like coverage.py.
How do you ensure the robustness and reliability of a production application?
I focus on thorough testing, monitoring, and logging, implementing health checks, circuit breakers, and graceful degradation ensures the application remains robust under varying conditions. I also use monitoring tools like Prometheus and Grafana to keep an eye on application performance and errors in real time.
Can you discuss a time when you had to debug a complex issue in production? How did you approach it?
In one instance, we had a performance issue in production where API response times were spiking intermittently. I began by analyzing the logs and tracing the request to identify the pattern. It turned out to be a resource contention issue in our database. We resolved it by optimizing the database queries and implementing better indexing.
How do you keep your skills and knowledge up to date with the latest technologies?
I dedicate time to continuous learning by following industry blogs, participating in online courses, and contributing to open source projects. I also attend conferences and webinars whenever possible to stay abreast of the latest trends and best practices.
What are your thoughts on microservices versus monolithic architectures?
Both have their pros and cons. Microservices offer scalability and flexibility, especially in large, complex applications. However, they also come with challenges like increased complexity in deployment and inter service communication. Monolithic architecture are simpler to develop and deploy, but can become difficult to manage as the application grows. The choice depends on the specific needs and the scale of the project.
How do you manage API documentation for the applications you build?
I use tools like Swagger or OpenAPI to auto-generate documentation for APIs. In FastAPI, this is built in and very easy to set up. For Django, I use Django REST frameworks built-in support for Swagger or custom documentation templates. Keeping documentation up to date with code changes is crucial. So I integrate it into the CI/CD pipeline.
What is your experience with cloud platforms, and how do you leverage them in your projects?
I have worked extensively with AWS and Azure. I leverage these platforms for hosting, data storage, and scaling applications. I also use services like AWS Lambda for serverless computing, S3 for storage, and EC2 for scalable compute resources. My experience includes setting up CI/CD pipelines, configuring auto scaling, and managing security groups and IAM rules.
How do you ensure your code is maintainable and scalable?
I adhere to coding standards and best practices, write clean and modular code, and document it well. I also focus on writing reusable components and services, which aids in scalability. Code reviews and pair programming are essential parts of my process to maintain code quality.
Can you describe your approach to database design and optimization?
Database design starts with understanding the data requirements and relationships. I use normalization to eliminate redundancy but denormalize when necessary for performance. Indexing is crucial for query optimization, and I also use caching strategies to reduce database load. For large scale systems, I might implement sharding or partitioning.
How do you handle cross-team communication when working on a project that spans multiple departments?
Clear communication is key. I usually set up regular meetings or stand ups to ensure everyone is aligned. I also document decisions and changes thoroughly to keep everyone informed. Usually, using collaboration tools like Jira or Confluence helps in maintaining transparency and tracking progress.
Now, I'd like to shift to a few behavioral questions to understand how you work within teams and handle challenges. Can you describe a situation where you had to deal with a difficult team member? How did you handle it?
In one project, a team member was consistently missing deadlines, which was affecting the project's progress. I approached them privately to discuss the issue and understand their perspective. It turned out they were struggling with a specific task, so I offered to help and reassigned some of their work to balance the load. The situation improved after that, and we were able to meet our deadlines.
Tell me about a time when you had to quickly adapt to a significant change in a project.
There was a project where the client suddenly changed the scope halfway through, requiring a major pivot in our approach. I quickly assessed the new requirements, reprioritized tasks, and reallocated resources to address the changes. I also communicated with the team to ensure everyone was on board with the new direction, and we were able to deliver the project on time despite the changes.
How do you prioritize your work when you have multiple deadlines approaching?
I start by evaluating the urgency and importance of each task. I use tools like the Eisenhower matrix or prioritize effectively. For overlapping deadlines, I break down tasks into smaller, manageable parts and tackle them based on priority while keeping stakeholders informed about any potential risk or delays.
Can you give an example of how you've contributed to a positive team environment?
In one of my previous roles, I initiated weekly knowledge sharing sessions where team members could present new technologies or best practices they had encountered. I called them lunch and learn. This not only fostered a culture of learning but also helped in building a more collaborative and supportive team environment.
What motivates you to perform well in your job?
I am motivated by the challenge of solving complex problems and the satisfaction of delivering high quality solutions that make a tangible impact. Continuous learning and the opportunity to work with talented individuals also drive me to perform at my best.
Thank you, Vivian. That wraps up my questions for today. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to know more about the team I'd be working with and immediate challenges I would be tackling if I joined.
That's a great question. You'd be joining a team of skilled developers who are currently working on scaling our platform to handle increased data loads and integrating more advanced AI driven features. The immediate challenge would be optimizing our existing processes and ensuring the new features are seamlessly integrated into the production environment.
That sounds exciting. I appreciate the insights.
We're glad to hear that. We'll be in touch soon with the next steps. Thank you again for your time, Vivian.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing from you.